Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation with Captain Hoff. Captain, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Yeah. All right. So, what's your real name and what do you do?
So my real name is Steve Hoffman. And what I do is I'm a venture investor in Silicon Valley, and I run Founder Space, which is a global startup accelerator. So we have over 50 partners in 22 countries, work with hundreds of startups all around the world, investing in them, mentoring them, accelerating them. And I am also an author. So I have written several books. My first one, Make Elephants Fly, published by Hachette, is all about the process of radical innovation. My new book, Surviving a Startup, published by HarperCollins, is what the title says. It's how to survive as a startup, how to raise capital, how to grow. And my other book that also came out this year, The 5 Forces That Change Everything, is about how technology is transforming business, society, and our lives.
All right. So, let's go back in time, Captain. Can I call you Captain?
Yeah,
All
call
right.
me Captain.
Let's go back in time and kind of explore, like, how'd you get into this game? Were you born in the venture world, or did you have to fight, scream, crawl up the tower to get there? Give us your story.
I had to be in the trenches, fighting, screaming, crawling to get there. In fact, I have been an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. So I ran 2 bootstrap companies and 3 venture funded companies in Silicon Valley. And I learned the hard way what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to raise capital. I raised a lot of capital, to grow teams, all the stuff entrepreneurs need to go through. And then I made a lot of connections, both in Silicon Valley. I know literally hundreds of investors, and also globally, because we have Founder Space. Either we're partnering with people or we have our own accelerators in so many different countries.
Mm-hmm. So cool. All right. So talk to us about the first startup that you were working on or founded. Paint a picture there.
So the first startup I founded was a software company, and I had a vision, and it's ironic. So the vision was I wanted to educate entrepreneurs. So that was my very first startup, but I wanted to do it at the time through gaming. So through a game, a business simulation game where you play the role of an entrepreneur. And the game of all things was called Gazillionaire. So I bootstrapped it, created Gazillionaire, put my heart and soul into that product, and it just took off. Like, we got major distribution from the largest PC game publisher in the world. The product Gazillionaire went out everywhere. Millions of people played it. And then it enjoyed people played it just for fun because it was super addictive, really fun game. Then it took on a second life in schools and universities, where it became used to teach entrepreneurs. And we released a series of these. We released Zapitalism came next, and then Profitania came after that. So we had this whole franchise. It did really well. In fact, all of those are still available on Steam today. They're classics. So that was my first company. And then I just went on from there. Yeah.
That is so awesome. So, like, I remember playing as I started learning about entrepreneurship, right? Because you go to business school and, like, they're reading books, that are 20 years old, right? So there's nothing really new. But I remember, like, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad game came out, Cash Flow. And then, like, all these games started coming out. Like, where could I find your games? Like, if I wanted to play your games today, where would I go to play them?
Oh, you could just go to gazillionaire.com. That's an easy place. Or you can go to Steam, and they're all on Steam.
Gazillionaire.com. Now, did you make $1 gazillion with that game?
Yeah, close to a gazillion virtual dollars. The game did really well, but yeah, a gazillion is a big number.
That's a big number. How do you quantify a gazillionaire? So there's millions, billions, trillions. Is that what happens after a trillion?
Yeah, you get about 1 trillion Elon Musks, and then you got a gazillionaire.
Nice. So I'm on my way. Are you on your way?
I am we're all on our way.
There you go. All right. So you created these games, and then, major distribution. How did you crack into that distribution? Because even that in itself is an interview. How did you do that?
First of all, I just put the game out there. So for people to download, I would just uploaded it everywhere, all these gaming sites, everywhere I could get it. And people start downloading it, and they start sending us money. that worked really well. And the distribution came almost by accident. It was the QA team, the testers, the people who test games at this big company at the time, the largest PC game company, Spectrum Holobyte Microprose, and their testers got addicted to it, and they just went up the corporate ladder. They're like, "You got to get this game," and so that's how it happened.
Yeah. So the first time, what were you doing before you built this startup, and why was this game important to you?
So I have a interesting background. So I'm electrical computer engineer undergrad. Then I went to graduate school in film and television at USC. Then I worked my way up the ladder in Hollywood as a TV development executive. And then I met the founder of this game company called Sega in Japan. And he wanted to hire somebody who loved games. I was a total gamer and understood entertainment to come over to Japan and design games. So I went to Japan, design games, and then I came back and launched my own game company. So that's how it started.
All right. So if you and I are hanging out with the younger captain, like when video games first hit the market, what were some early games that you enjoyed playing?
Oh, I was totally into Civilization, Sid Meier's game. Like, I love strategy games. So I
So
was
good.
I like first person shooters too, but strategy games are my sweet spot. And Company of Heroes was another one, just crazy about Age of Empires, all
Age of
these,
Empires.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sim City, I was totally into. So those type of games I just ate up. And then I also played all the first person shooters like Doom and Quake and, Duke Nukem, you name it.
Yeah. Doom was really revolutionary of its time because it was edgy, it was a little scary, and like a lot of graphic blood for its time. Like that was a fun game.
It was an amazing game. Like when it came out, it just blew every other game out of the water. Like
Yeah.
people were just like, "Oh my God, you can do these first person shooters." It was like the first big first person shooter out there, and it was just revolutionary. And of course, every other game has followed in its footsteps.
Yeah.
Every other FPS.
Now, I've done about 700 interviews, across the years, and I think at one point I connected and interviewed the guy who created the music for Doom back in the
Oh, there
day.
you go.
I
There
was
you
just
go.
like,
And
God, I wasn't allowed to play your games, but I did, and they were awesome.
yes, so
Yeah.
I was in that generation of games, creating games. I created my own different type of game, but yes, I have a huge respect for John Carmack, the founder.
Very cool. So as you built the game, major, massive success, round one, right? Like how old were you when you got into this? Because you climbed the corporate ladder and then you're like, yeah, maybe entrepreneurship. I'll give this a swing.
Well, I climbed it pretty fast and I've jumped around pretty fast. I like to say I've had more careers than cats have had lives. So I've jumped around all over the place. You know, I I literally stayed a Hollywood TV exec. I got promoted really quickly out of college. And then I stayed a year and then jumped to Sega, stayed a year and then started my game. So I was in my mid 20s.
Yeah. So, all right, you and I go back in time. We're playing Doom, hanging out together, and you can give your now self could give a piece of advice to your younger Steve while you and I are playing on Doom. What piece of advice would you give the younger Steve?
Well, enjoy every minute of it, of course,
Yeah.
because, and just so you know, my nickname, Captain Hoff, is my gamer handle. That's how it
Oh,
came about. I was Captain Hoff. That's what people called me. So, you know, really enjoy things. I also would have done more investments early into
mhm.
startups. Like I should have started earlier because, I was right there. So I was so focused on doing my own companies, but I should have also been focused on investing in other people's companies.
Yeah, like maybe early Airbnb,
Yeah, I think
Twitter,
so.
Facebook, right?
No, you
Those
can
are
never have done enough. Yes.
right. All right. So you get, at what point did you say, okay, it's time to move on to second startups? Because you said you bootstrapped a few and then three, venture back. Kind of like walk us through each one, high level.
Yeah. So high level. So the second one was interactive television because I was in Hollywood.
Cool.
I moved back from Japan to California, and I did an interactive TV company. It's called Spider Dance. So we did we launched with a show on MTV. And it was hosted by Amit Zappa, Frank Zappa's son. And we put it out there, and it was basically another game, but this time it was a game that you would play along with the TV show. So you would play it and it would synchronize perfectly. We built the whole platform for it. So basically, when they ask a question on air on your PC, you'd get the same question and you could win prizes. And then
Wow.
we would actually take the winners and in real time pump them back into the TV broadcast nationwide. So it was hugely successful. We did a bunch of these. We did one for Weakest Link, as was a big game show put on by NBC. We did the Inquisition on Game Show Network. We did History IQ on the History Channel. We worked with Turner Broadcasting, Warner Brothers. We just all the big networks. Really fun. After that, I did another startup that was a social media startup. So video on social media, and it was called Xanel. And then we changed our name to Tap 11, and we were doing all this social media stuff, and it got acquired by the YouTube guys on their next company.
Oh, very cool.
And then I did another company, which was a virtual world game. So we did this big virtual world called Rocket On. And it was basically a virtual world where you would walk on top of the web. Like literally you'd have avatars, these characters, and they could walk on any website. You could meet your friends on a website. You could chat. You could go on treasure hunts throughout the web. Crazy idea. That one failed. It didn't work out so well because literally Facebook came along and ate our lunch. Everybody's moved from this virtual world thing. People, it was crazy. You know, you launch these games, you never know. We had a lot of users, but then they all started playing what was it, Farmville. They all started going to Farmville, and we were like, what's this sticking out? Because the virtual world was less a game and more a social environment, and people were spending more of their time on Facebook socializing. So you do these things. And then after that, I launched Founder Space so I could work with all these entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. All right. So had some successes. What was out of all of those? What was the biggest success? You could give as much detail as you want.
So there's success in different ways. There's monetary success. There's also biggest success, like personally, emotionally. Like I loved my first company, the one that made Gazillionaire and all those early games, because literally in the later companies, I just worked on the design, but I was really more on, the CEO. But on the first products, I designed them all. They were just labors of love. I drew the animations and had artists color them in, and and to see those take off, there's nothing like that first success.
Yeah. Let's just say you and I have this massive exit. You and I never need to work again.
Yeah.
And we're hanging out playing Doom again, or playing Gazillionaire. And I'm like, man, maybe we should do something. What would be like if you and I were to start something right now, we have no need for any money. We could self-fund it ourselves. Like, what would be a project that you'd be like, I'd be jazzed about doing that?
Well, I have to say that when I got to that point, it was Founder Space.
So you've been there.
No, because I could work with all these other amazing entrepreneurs, help them like live vicariously through them and actually learn from them. Like every time I work with an entrepreneur, I learn so much about their business, what they're doing. So I love learning and I love teaching. So something that involves learning and teaching, like what I'm doing now, I wouldn't change. Like I absolutely love it. If I was to do something else, I'd want something else that would have an even bigger impact. So I would want something that would, first of all, address a real major world problem. And probably, like something like, the fishing, we're decimating our oceans with the fishing industry. So something that would go in and actually transform that industry to be sustainable, because it's just going to burn itself out and we're just killing off everything in the oceans. Doing something around, making the climate better, or around education, educating young people, inspiring young people. I love what I'm doing now, so I'm going to continue that. But there's so many other things, if I could clone myself and one of them could hang out with you, that I would do.
Yeah. I'd hang out with your clone. Like if you figured that piece out, like where you create a clone, send your clone over to the East Coast. We're in Florida. We'll hang out. We'll build a business. That's a way to scale. It's just clone yourself.
Yeah, just go. I've had that trouble. Like, how do you scale yourself? Right.
Yeah.
We need cloning.
We need cloning. All right, Jeff Bezos, come on, figure this out. I want to be able to Amazon Prime my clone over to me.
Yeah, and even a virtual clone would be fine. Like just, get an AI to mimic me and go out there and do everything I want. And then the real me could jump between the virtual me's.
There you go. All right. So like the show or the movie Multiplicity back in the day, Michael Keaton, I think it was.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So day-to-day basis, what's like the perfect day for you? Because you said, hey, Josh, I already hit the lotto. I'm doing what I love doing. I love working with these people. What day-to-day where you go back home and you're like telling your friends, your family, you're like, today was the best day ever. What's that look like?
So the best days ever are when I go deep with a startup founder and we like connect on all these different levels. Like we connect emotionally, we connect vision wise, but then I can also go deep with them on their product. Like I love products. You can probably tell I'm a product guy. So like going into their product, trying to figure out how to make it really work, the user experience, the design, that stuff, but then also tying that into the bigger picture, their business model. How do we make it scalable? How can we really make a product that just takes off? And when we hit on a day where I hit a breakthrough, where I actually come up with something with them, like together or jointly, we come up with something that neither of us would have come up with separately, those are the days I go home and talk about it.
How do you celebrate? So when you have one of those days, how do you celebrate?
How do I celebrate? You know, a lot of times I celebrate just by sharing my excitement. Oh, when I had have dinner with my kids, and so we would. My kids are a little older now, but when they were in middle school and high school, every night I tried to have dinner with them. I thought it was really important. The most important thing I could do was spend time having dinner, but not on our phones, not reading something, not chatting with other people, talking to each other. So I would share these breakthroughs at the dinner table as both educating my kids, I was watching their excitement. I was asking them their ideas, what they thought. And we had this dynamic, which was really, really wonderful.
How old were your kids when you had the social network fail?
Oh, the virtual world, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, which probably would be funded today because we are hearing about the metaverse everywhere.
Yeah.
So that they were in middle school.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you pulled the plug on the company. You're having dinner. You invited Josh over. You're like, hey, kids, I'm bringing over one of my crazy buddies from the East Coast, and we're gonna have dinner. And you have to break the news to your kids about the failure. How'd you do it?
Oh, so they don't even care. Like they could care less. I just like, that thing didn't work. It was just a game, right? We made a game. It didn't work. So we're on to the next thing. Like I've made a lot of games. Like I've been probably a producer and executive producer on like 50 different titles. It's like Hollywood. Like some are blockbusters and some just don't work. they don't work. You can't predict it, but you have to try it. You have to put the product out there. So I was just like, it didn't work. People didn't, stick around. Everybody thought it was great when they first tried it for the first 2 weeks, but a month later they were on to something else. And you can't monetize a game if you do that. So those lessons and kind of showing them that it doesn't really matter. Like your job is just to put stuff out there, to have fun, to be creative, to do it, and then see what happens.
Yeah. That's so good. So your kids got to see a bunch of cool stuff as you were, if I asked your kids, so we're around the dinner table and I asked your kids and I was like, what do you, what do you think was their coolest moment experience what you are working on?
Their coolest moment. That's a good question. I've never been asked these questions. These are really original. So,
Thanks,
so their coolest moment, their coolest moments when I would ask their opinion on stuff. So especially as they got into high school and older, and they were really able to form their own opinions. And I'd bring home a startup and say, I'm thinking of working with this startup. Should I invest my time? Should I invest my money? And I describe a startup to them, and then they would say, Dad, nah. Don't waste your time. And I was like, why? I was pretty excited. And then they would tell me their perspective. Then they're really excited.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
Two boys.
Two kids. Oh, two boys. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So
they are gamers too.
Are they? If you guys sat down and we had a little tournament on Doom, who would win? Now
they would crush me.
They would crush
you. They, even if they'd never played the game, I play games with them that I'm like good at, and they within a few days they're crushing me. So they're first of all, they think so fast and they know games so well that I can't compete.
Yeah. Now in games, right? Games and learning, gamification, right? I started studying this. I was at the fire department and I built a game.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is your sweet spot too.
I've never told anybody this.
Yeah. Oh,
I built a game on PowerPoint because I didn't know how to code or whatever, but it was called Blood Games, and it taught medics how to do CPR and such like that with different dosages. Now it was cheesy, it was terrible, but I built that back in the day. Now gamification and learning I think is so powerful. How did you think to get into that as you were building Gazillionaire and Zip, what was the other one?
Capitalism and Profitania.
Yeah. Why did you think learning and gaming at the same time?
So first of all, I'm always a curious guy, so I always like learning and
Yeah.
I want to learn. Second, I wanted to see if I could make an educational game that was as fun to play as the shooters, like that you wouldn't even think of it's a game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would think, oh no, that you're learning something. The whole point would be you don't feel like you're learning something. You just feel like you're having fun, but along the way you actually learn a lot. So that was the challenge to myself. I was like, there are enough people making these other type of games, but if I could do this really well, I'd feel really proud of myself. And
Yeah.
it inspired a lot of people. Like the game still being used like in high schools around the world. It's also was used in the California prison system to reform criminals and teach them about entrepreneurship. It was used in corporations, places I would have never anticipated.
So cool. All right. So if you and I are hanging out and I grab your phone, and you're like, hey, check out this game. What's a game right now that you have on your phone that's kind of like a guilty little pleasure that you show people and you're like, or maybe you
Oh,
don't show people?
so there's so many great games, but I'm actually not a big phone gamer, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
One, it's too addictive. I would spend too much time. I would play all these games, the tower defense games. I don't know if you
Yes.
played them, but I played like literally, like I love those tower defense games. So if I was to pick, I would pick one of those like the latest tower defense game, whatever it is. And I just got too addicted. So I had to like stop playing games on my phone. And then even like today, like I limit the time I play on my PC because I'm too much of a gamer. And
Yeah.
and to me now, my work is my game. So I kind of treat it as my game.
Very cool. Do you think we'll ever see investments becoming a game? Like actual investments, maybe not
Gamify
gaming.
investments. Yeah, so
Game
we
of
do. It's happening right now, and it's
Ooh.
happened in a huge way. It's called cryptocurrency. So if you want a game, it's like most of these cryptocurrencies. What are they really worth? They're just people playing a game. That's what they are doing, and it's
Yeah.
funny money. That's why these NFTs have gone through the roof, right? Because they're another form of game. Like let's see if I can buy some crazy image of some ape, walking along to a funky song and sell it for $1 million. And they're doing it. So you look at the people doing it. It's all been gamified investment.
Yeah. Wow. I never connected those dots and it was right under my nose the whole time.
Yeah, so
So
that's what cryptocurrency is. It's the combination of investing in games, and you don't have to be an accredited investor. Like for angel investing, anybody with a few bucks can get in on the game.
all right. So I've got a few dollars in my wallet, like paid for my kids' lunches. I'm good. And I got a couple extra bucks. What's a good way that I could get in the game, with a couple bucks without, going
You're
too
asking me
nuts?
for crypto advice?
do, do you
There's
know about
plenty of
crypto?
guys out there who give that advice.
Yeah.
They're like, there's, I can't give you that advice because it's changing literally.
Yeah.
Should I invest in Dogecoin or, is there a new puppy dog that's coming up fast on its heels?
Yeah.
It's about, it's a game, right? Like Dogecoin was a joke. It was a meme. And now, but that's what made it more fun for people. Should I invest in, GameStop stock? That's another game. If you look at, Wall Street bets, it's a game. They're just playing games out there. So playing
Wow.
games with real money.
That's
So,
so cool.
you know, what you should, my advice to you actually is don't put all your money in one basket and don't put it all in cryptocurrency. Don't put it all in, some meme stock, spread your money out, have some conservative investments and, and then you can take a portion of what you do and have fun with it.
So one of the things you love talking about is the criteria for investors, right? So
Yeah.
there's fun money, game money, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like scratching lotto tickets. And then there's sophisticated investors, especially in
Right.
Silicon Valley, which is the place that's known for the VC world, right? And you said that there's certain criteria that people look at when looking at a startup to invest in. Kind of like walk us through the Silicon Valley space, and you're coaching me, and you're like, all right, Josh, here's some tips and tricks. Do you want
Okay,
funding from
Josh.
us? Here we go.
Yeah. So if there's a startup entrepreneurs out there, pay attention. If you're an investor, and pay attention. Like the criteria are the same. So basically, what I look for and what most experienced smart investors look for are a few things. So number one, we want a great team. So we don't want a team we don't want a solopreneur out there who hasn't built a team. You never build $1 billion company by yourself, right? You build $1 billion company by attracting amazing people. How do we know? The most important skill an entrepreneur can have, the CEO, is leadership. Like, can you attract amazing talent and put them to work in a direction, give them a vision? You don't have to do anything else, but if you do that well, that's enough. That's what we look for. Everything else is gravy. Like, if you can code, that's gravy. If you can, design, that's gravy. If you can, if you can go out and do marketing, great. But you can find people who can do it better than you, and you can you can get them together, motivate them, set them on a path. That's the thing. Number one, what path are you on? That's number one is the team. Number two, the path you're on. Are you on the right path? So I tell, when I look at companies, we want to see some demonstrable proof. Like, anybody can have a big idea, and I have ideas every other minute, right? And most of them turn out to be like, they sound great, especially in my own head when I say them, but when I actually put them to the test, there's a hole in them, or they're like a sieve, they're just leaking. So what proof can we have that we can extrapolate upon? It doesn't have to be a fully flown like traction where you have revenue growth and user growth that's just through the roof, but do you have proof that we can that you can show us that customers need this product? Not that they like the product, not that it's a good product, but it's a product that they absolutely have to have yesterday. Like, they're like chomping at the bit. That's what we want to see. Number three, the third big one, is your business model. I like models where you don't sell to a customer once and then they disappear, because the two biggest costs a company has are the people and the customer acquisition. That's where you're going to spend most of your money. So great, if you got great people, good. If you acquire a customer, I never want you to let go of that customer. I want that customer to be giving you money for the rest of that customer's life, And so how can you get a customer and keep them forever? And how can you get them to continually, it doesn't have to be a lot of money. It can be very small amounts of money. Like on Facebook, they give you literally pennies on these ads. They're showing ads all the time. You click on one every once in a while, but they stick with Facebook long enough, and there's enough users out there. It makes enormous amounts of money. Amazon, can you build an ecosystem? This is what we really like. Can you build an ecosystem where when you bring a customer in, this is how you never lose them, you are continually providing them value, right? You're giving them value on an ongoing basis. So they're always willing to give you something in return, which is their time or money, right? Their attention or money. Both of them translate into money ultimately. And when they're in your ecosystem, the really powerful, the exponential growth companies are the ones that the more people you bring in, the more valuable the ecosystem becomes, because they are contributing to the ecosystem. You get that? That's the golden ticket.
That is so good. Let me write this down.
I gave you like kind of an overview of the top three things. There's many more, but those are the top three.
Yeah. Now, you, like me, right? We come up with tons of ideas, right? We're idea people. We love ideas. We fueled by it.
Yeah.
How do you capture your ideas?
So a lot of them just unfortunately just pass right on through, because I don't even have time to like go deep on them. Once in a while, if I think it's a really great idea, then I will, you have your phone, you can literally talk into your phone, or you can, a lot of times I'll just send myself either a text message or an email message with the title of the idea, enough to remind me, like I'm on the go, right? So I'm not going to spend time writing out a whole, business plan or executive summary. I'm just going to write it, great idea on sustainable fishing, right? And then that will remind me, oh yeah, I had that idea. I'm going to go back to it. And it'll be in my inbox or in a text message so that it's waiting for me.
Yeah. Are you an inbox zero kind of guy?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Does it drive you nuts when you get an email at like at 11:40 or something at night?
I have my rules. So I try not to check email too late at night because it could drive you nuts. But I'm always, I'm just like, I don't have a gazillion folders either. So I have like a founder space folder. It'll like, I respond to it and it goes into founder space, or I respond to it and it goes into my personal folder, or I can't respond to it, but it's really important, and I put it in a to-do folder. Otherwise it gets deleted. It's gone.
I get you, man. So, all right. So we just had a big exit. One of your portfolio, how many portfolio companies are going through founder space?
Oh, so we have literally, I have stock in hundreds of companies, small amounts in hundreds of companies.
You're
Yes.
you're awesome, by the way. That's so cool.
They're not huge stakes, but
Yeah.
in all these different companies. Yes.
But one of them we hit a gazillion, right? And
Yes,
we have a
exactly. Exactly.
major,
A
major
small stake
exit.
can turn into a big amount of money.
Right. So we have a major exit. What are we
Yeah.
gonna do to like what's something that you would maybe go buy that you're like to celebrate? I like hats,
Ah,
right? I'd buy a hat. What would you buy?
you'd buy a hat. I love your
Yeah,
hat.
I
I
love
love your hat.
hats. Thanks.
You're a hat man.
I'm a hat
I
man.
should be a hat man. I'm bald. I should buy more hats. I should be wearing a hat right now like you. Um, so nobody would know I'm bald. So what would I buy? So,
Yeah.
I take the money and go on a vacation. Like I love traveling. I just go somewhere that I'd never been. I always like going places I have never been. So that's my goal. I got hampered a little by COVID and all the restrictions in different countries and the hassle. But before COVID, I was traveling 70% of my time, literally
Cool.
around the world. I want to get back to that. And I want to go to more exotic locations. A lot of times the startups will send me to the same places over and over. Like I'm going to Beijing, I'm going to New York, I'm, going to all these centers, Singapore, places like that, where all the hubs are. But I would go to like Africa. I would go to the Middle East, a safe place in the Middle East. I would go to a place off the beaten track
Yeah. That's
where
cool.
there might be no startups, but I'm just celebrating.
So Israel has some incredible startups. There's some really cool
Tell me
stuff.
about it. Tell me about it. Israel is like unbelievable for the
Yeah.
size, for the population there.
They're doing some really cool stuff. So, all right. So we go to an exotic place. What's something that you would do for fun once there? Like
So
adventure,
yeah, so
study,
I'm an
eating.
outdoors adventure guy.
Okay.
Like, so eating's always great wherever you are, but I can eat great in San Francisco. You don't need to go anywhere else. They have so many amazing restaurants. So it would be an adventure. It'd be like, going, I love hiking. So be going into the jungle, going into, really beautiful, amazing places that don't have a lot of tourists is where I would go. And I love not planning my trips. So when I go for fun, when I travel for fun, I don't, intentionally don't make a plan because I love serendipity. So I will pick a location that I've never been that's a really amazing. Like I'll go to Santiago, Chile, or I'll go to, you know, Panama, and then I will just travel and literally that way. If I find something, an amazing spot, I can stay there. Like I have no pressure because I have no plan. And so I could stay there a week, I could stay there a day, I could stay there a few days. And so I'll just travel around. I love Airbnbs. So I'll stay in Airbnbs over hotels whenever I can. And then even in a city like that I go to, I will just wander the streets and like I'll come across this amazing statue or this amazing museum that I never or this restaurant that I never expected. And because I didn't expect it, it's so much better. Like if
Yeah.
it was on my list, my itinerary, and I was already had it all planned out, and you're going down this list, how a lot of people travel, it wouldn't be nearly as much fun.
I'm trying to look this up real quick. Not all who wanders are lost. It's a Lord of the Rings saying.
Ah, yes.
And I love that. I love going to a new place and then renting a scooter or something like that and disappearing, right? Like going through the
Yeah,
village, like,
just walking the streets, biking the streets, scootering the
yeah,
streets. You're just like, and there's cities that you never would expect that are totally just amazing. Like I just traveled the whole country. Like I spent 4.5 months driving across the country while I was working, because you can do it remotely now. So I'm working, traveling across the country. I stop in the city. I didn't expect anything. It's Troy, New York. Like Troy, New York. Who goes to, nobody stops at Troy, New York. I went and stayed in Troy, New York for a week. It was amazing. Like it's this cultural center. The streets, it feels kind of like Europe. They have all these outdoor cafes. They have art things going on. They have an incredible university there. Just it's not too far from Albany, so you can do all these day trips around there. Totally amazing. And I like not to move every day. I like to stay in a place a week. You don't know a place until you've stayed there like a week. So that's another rule of travel.
yeah. So, all right. So you've built a few businesses.
Yeah.
You've written a few books. What's your process in writing a book? Like I'm stuck, right? So give some advice.
Oh,
I'm looking at my
writing a
book.
book is brutal, right?
Yeah.
Because it's long. It's like not writing a blog article. It's not doing a podcast. Like
Yeah.
this is like I can do in my sleep. Writing a book is concentrated. The only way I can write a book is to prioritize it. Like to just say, I am going to write now until this book is done for the next month or two, right? And I'm just going to go ballistic. Like, unless I'm writing every day, to write occasionally on a book, too hard for me to get going. Like, I have to get in the zone, in the go. So the only way is to say, I'm not doing anything else, and I am going to write every day like a mad person. And literally, that's what I do.
Do you sit there and type? Do you have a typewriter? Do you dictate? Like,
A
what's your?
typewriter. I need a word processor. Those are the old days. Like,
Yeah.
no, I use Microsoft Word because for the spell, if anything, just to correct my grammar and spelling. Like, it's a godsend. I'm dyslexic, so I need this extra
Are you
set of.
really?
Yeah. So to become a writer was a challenge for me. But when you have ideas and you want to express them, I'm a huge book fan. I'm a huge audiobook fan. I'm just always consuming new information. So for me to share that information, that's what motivates me to write at the
Cool.
end of the day.
If I lifted up your phone and opened up your Audible app, or we
Yes.
saw like your most recent couple books, what are some things that you're listening to right now?
Oh, so right now, I do all genres of books. So I'm not somebody who just does business books or just does science books or just does history. I do history, business books, science books, anthropology books, sociology books, psychology books. I do fiction, great authors. I try to read all the great classic authors that ever existed. I'm always trying to read them all the way back to antiquity. And then I'm doing modern, like I love current books like that are just out on the bestseller list. And right now I am into fantasy. So I just got on this fantasy trip, and I am doing the Lightbringer series. I don't know if you've read it. The Lightbringer series, absolutely amazing. So really just look it up and you'll see. I do so I'm into fantasy right now, but I just bounce. I'm also reading. I usually do several books at a time. So I'm also reading a book on new technology out there, and I'm reading several different things. And I love history. I'm just a huge history fanatic.
Yeah. When you listen to a book, are you able to work and listen to a book, or walk or drive, or do you have to like focus?
I cannot work, like I cannot like actually work and listen to a book. I'm not that. I don't have two totally separate microprocessors in my head that can
Yeah.
do that. But what I do is I exercise and listen to books. I drive and I listen to books. I even take showers and listen to books. And I brush my teeth and I listen to books. I cook and I listen to books. That's how obsessed I am with audiobooks. And
That's cool.
I go through at least one audiobook a week, at least. But I also do them at double speed. Like,
Yes.
I train my brain to do them at double speed. You could probably do it yourself. First, it seems too fast. It seems impossible. But after a while, it feels like they're talking normally. And you go back to normal speed and they're talking like this. So,
Yeah.
and I've even gotten the point now where I watch, my movies at double speed because I've become such a double speed fanatic.
Yeah.
Like, so,
So you mentioned you love history, right? If you and I
yeah.
could go back in time to any point in history, and we get to hang out for a week,
Okay.
where would we go?
Good. It's only a week. If it were longer than a week, I'd need antibiotics. So it have to be that after the start. I want to deal with not having antibiotics. And I try to avoid the Black Plague periods and any plague period that's going on. But if it's only for a week, and I know I can come back and get medical care if I
Yeah.
get the plague, probably medieval history would be just absolutely fascinating for me.
What is your most like? What do you like about the medieval like period in history? Do you like the most?
Well, you were asking me questions that when I heard your podcast name, I just never expected these crazy questions. I don't get asked these at all. Like, these are like absolutely insane. So, okay. The, maybe I would go back to the height of Constantinople, when it was the biggest, most glorious city in the world, when it was at the intersection of all the cultures, like Middle East, Asia, Europe, Africa. Everybody was coming there, and the Emperor of Constantinople was like the god. That would be a really interesting time.
So cool. Now you brought something up. Like the show is called The Deal Scout. I've built
Yeah.
8 shows, sold 1, did 700 interviews across my other brands. We're going to do 500 interviews on this by August of next year. And you're like, this is really interesting. You don't talk a lot about deals, and we will. But what I found is I spent some times with like cool people like you, and like you've written books, you've been on other interviews. Like you and I will chat about things that most people will never get to hang out with you and spend time and get to know some of the things that are like not on a
Yes.
normal
Yeah.
podcast
These are
show.
great
I
questions. That's what
love
I'm
this.
saying. I love
Yeah.
it.
So, what I find is people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So the deal
Yes.
scout, there's always a story behind the deal maker. And I like to find the cool quirks of people. And then
Well,
and then it attracts our tribe, right? Like we find our
yeah.
tribe, and then we hang out, we do deals together, we make a shit ton of money, and then we do it again with other
Yeah. I
people,
feel like
right?
I know you already. And
Well,
I haven't
I
even interviewed you yet.
well, I love your style, man. I think we were introduced by Dr. Jeremy
Yes.
and his
He's
team over
wonderful.
there, and he hangs out with some incredible people. What a
He
cool
is.
guy. And I
He
just want to give
is.
a shout out to him. But as you're building this, let's bring this back to the founder space of what you're building there. What inspired you to build that? Right, so you're traveling, you're writing some books, you're having fun, you've had some exits, you have your kids, and you're like, I need to build this. What made you
Oh,
do
so
that?
what inspired me was number one thing. I wanted to help my friends out. So I'd launched companies. They were a lot of them launching their first company. They're coming to me, Captain Off. How do I do this? How do I raise money? How do I put together an investor deck? How do I, can you look at my product? Can you look at my app? So it's helping them out casually. And then I started to answer all their questions. And then I found, wow, they all have similar questions. I'll post the answers on my blog, called it Founder Space. More entrepreneurs started to contact me. I started to hold founder space roundtables in coffee shops where I'd invite angel investors and, lawyers and marketing people and entrepreneurs getting together, all, collaborating, talking, sharing. And then they were like, why don't you open your own startup incubator and accelerator? And I thought, I should do that. And then one of my friends, he ran a co-working space, Soma Central in San Francisco, right downtown. I went to his space and he literally, the entire basement, it was huge, like huge space, was empty. It wasn't actually empty. It was empty of people filled with junk. And I'm like, move the junk out of here and let's make this founder space,
Wow.
So he was like, okay, I'll get the junk out in a month. Got the junk out. We spruced it up. And boom, we had founder space right in like the key location, like the hot spot in Soma, which is south of Market, San Francisco, where all the startups are. Early on, this was over a decade ago, and it just grew. And then people started to come from all over the world there, and we got a reputation. Our kind of niche was we helped a lot of international people were coming from all over the world to Silicon Valley. At that time, especially, it was where the magic was to learn. And we helped a lot of overseas entrepreneurs land in Silicon Valley.
That's so
And
cool.
get connected. So then we started to get invites, to Europe, to Asia, all over the place to work with their entrepreneurs. And we're like, yeah, we'll do that. I love to travel. And then we started traveling, sending our instructors abroad. And we started to form partnerships in all these different countries with different accelerators and governments and things like that. And it just kept growing. We entered the China market like early, ahead of most other people. And my God, the Chinese love to do deals, and we were flooded like with deals coming at us. And it was just an amazing time because I had just written my book, Make Elephants Fly, which is all about how startups innovate. Yeah. And I launched the book and I launched Founder Space in China at the same time. So in Shanghai. And all of a sudden, both of them just exploded. Like literally, I got on Tencent, the company that does WeChat, and they're the largest video company. They did a broadcast of me, and I just went literally across all of China. And overnight, it was like overnight, I became very famous there. So we just kept expanding. We're in like 5 cities now across China, founder space. And I did all these deals. It was just like really fun, amazing time that all happened by accident. Like I only went to China, and I just like all these countries I went to because I was curious, because I wanted to go and explore the culture. I wanted to see something different. And then whenever I go somewhere, some deals happen. They're like Deal Scout, like deals start coming to me. And I start, wow, this is an interesting deal. Maybe I'll do it. And one thing leads to another.
Here you are. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So you just released the book, Surviving a Startup, right?
Yes.
What is the one, if we pulled one page out of the book and you're like, this is the reason most startups fail, or the founder disappears for whatever reason, like what is that reason?
Yes. So that, yeah, I write a lot about that. And I also write about, how you succeed, of course, but based on, how do you survive? When the top reason most entrepreneurs fail is because they stick with their idea too long. And this seems totally counterintuitive. Like entrepreneurs spend too much time focused on their idea and not enough time focused on the other parts of their business. And I like to say, it's a pretty radical thing. I like to say, your idea doesn't even matter at the beginning. It does not matter. And you're like, what? Like, I don't even have an idea. In fact, spend 80% of your time up front, 80% finding people you want to work with. Find the most amazing people you work with have skill sets you don't. Like maybe one's a technologist, totally into technology, another person totally into marketing or business, and you're totally in, another one's into design. Bring these amazing people, not just anybody you can get, but absolutely the people that you're just like in awe of them, onto your team. Convince them and pick a direction that you all feel passionately about. So like I was talking earlier, like about making the fishing industry more sustainable. So if I wanted to make the fishing industry more sustainable, I wouldn't wait to have the idea because I don't know enough about the fishing industry. I'm an outsider, but outsiders are the ones who penetrate and disrupt industries. It's not the insiders. They never do it, right? They're too enmeshed. So I'm an outsider. I don't know about it. I'm not going to have the best idea off the bat. I have to go and immerse myself in that as an outsider with this amazing team of technologists, designer, people who have very creative new ideas. And I guarantee you, will figure out something better than anything I could have come up with initially. And if you don't believe me, like I'm going to tell you a story.
All right.
So
I like stories.
Yeah. So most of the great companies out there didn't start with the idea that made them great. Most of them, like people think they had that light bulb moment. No, it didn't happen that way. It was a process. So for example, YouTube, YouTube, everybody knows YouTube. They started out as a video dating site. Video dating. They weren't trying to build the largest broadcast network in the world online. That wasn't their vision. They wanted to do video dating, although it was failing. And when it was failing, they wanted just personally to share a video with their friends that they had made, and there was no easy way to do it. So they said, oh, we could upload it to our video dating site and just share the link. Sharing the link, that magic thing that they stumbled upon, gave birth to YouTube because they made it so easy to share videos online. And once they started to use this, they're like, they saw the light bulb went off. That's when it went off. They had already dived in with their team and built something. Google started out as an academic research project that they thought would be a nonprofit. Larry Page and Sergey Brin thought it would be a nonprofit. Why? Because they were helping academics find research papers online. That was their mission through their search engine. They didn't have the broader vision. That came later. And they were even once they had the broader vision, they had no idea how big it would be. They tried to sell their company for $750,000 to Excite at Home, and they were turned down. $750,000. You can imagine who would buy Google. Like that's like crazy, one of the most profitable companies in the world thought they were a nonprofit and then was willing to sell for cheap, even once they had figured it out. So it shows you just don't know. And the list can go on. Slack, we all know Slack started out as a game, we're talking about games. Game failed. It was a horrible game, but they looked internally and said, wow, we've developed this way of communicating with our team through instant messaging, direct messaging that really works. Maybe we could productize that. So when I'm telling entrepreneurs is, first of all, don't fall in love with your idea. Don't stick with it. Don't even have an idea. Pick an area you want to innovate on and a team to do it with. Go into the real world and just try a lot of things. Like companies succeed, the entrepreneurs like succeed, they try this, they try that, they try this, and then eventually they pick one that just boom goes.
Yeah. How do you know? There's a book, 3 Feet from Gold, right? And it talks about, I've read a lot of, startup books, and it talks about like people who quit, who were like so close. Like, why do you think they quit? Why do you think they give up?
That's a whole nother problem. So you're always telling yourself, I'm, what if I just stuck with it? What if I just stuck with it? This is the criteria when to stick with it and when not. It's very simple. Like 3 feet from gold could be summed up in one word, when you have gold. So Airbnb knew this. Every venture capitalist told them this will never work. People will never invite strangers into their home. They could be a serial killer, right? Everybody said that. It just won't work. It won't work. But they knew it worked. How did they know? Why did they stick with it for several years before they really took off? Because they were doing it themselves. They were doing the business. They were inviting people into their home. They loved to get the extra money, right, from inviting people in. And the people loved it, and the people, everybody loved it. They were crazy about it. When they tried it, they wanted more of it. That's how they knew. So my answer to you is, if you are building a product, eat your own dog food, right? So startups that build products for themselves, where they're the customer, they know, like Airbnb became their own customer. They knew they wanted this, right, for themselves. The other way is, if you're not the customer, and a lot of times you're not, it's a big corporation, an enterprise, something out there that you're just not, then you need to go to them, and go to a lot of them, go to like 100 of them, and ask them, look at my product. I'm thinking of building this, or we're already working on this. What do you think? Very early on. And they will tell you. If they say, wow, that's interesting, wow, that's neat, come back when it's done, we'll try it out. If all 100 tell you that, you will fail. You are giving wants an interesting product. Nobody even wants a good product. The reaction you have to get, this is how you know it's gold, is if not all of them, but if some of them turn to you, enough of them turn to you and say, not, oh, that's nice, oh, that's good, come back later, whatever. If enough of them say, oh my God, I have to have this product, give it to me. Can I have it now? Can I get it? How can I get it? What can I do? Can I be your beta tester? If you don't get that reaction from at least like 20% of your market, dude, you have nothing. Like you are 3 feet from nothing. You are miles from nothing. Like, I don't care. It's the core of your product. Not all the features you add, nothing else can save your product. Like I did there. I built that virtual world I told you about that didn't work. We kept adding feature after feature, because after feature, nothing saved the product. When the core doesn't work, if you tell them the core, and you can usually explain it pretty simply, like to somebody what the core value is, and they aren't jumping out of their chair for that because they've been waiting for it to come along, they didn't know it existed, then you don't have anything.
So good. So you and I hanging out at a coffee shop, and the perfect deal comes around for Founder Space, right? Where it's like a perfect fit for the incubator. Like, what does that look like?
It looks like what I just told you. Like, they can show me their customers. I could call them up on the phone and say, hey, they're like, it's a product ready? Are we going to get it? That, at an early stage, or they already have it and they're like, oh my God, I love this product. We could never live without it. I'm recommending it to everybody. Those are the perfect deals. Like, that's the perfect deal. Like, for me, nothing else matters. Like, if you get that reaction from, and there are enough similar customers out there like it, I'm investing in your company. Please, like, cut me in. If you don't have that, well, it's a crapshoot. Like, I can up my odds by, you have a great team. I can up my odds by, you're in a sector, a direction that shows promise. All those things can increase my odds. But when I see that, that's when I know.
Yeah, I like that. All right. So for the company that went through the, studying the criteria, they have customers, they've spent a lot of time developing a team and cool people that they're hanging out with. They're passionate about their product. They have deep knowledge about it, and it looks cool and it's fun. Maybe it's a game, and they go, I want to do a deal with you, Captain. How could they connect with you and do a deal with you?
Oh, you want to do a deal with me? I'm super easy to find. So first of all, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Steve Hoffman, Captain Hoff, Founder Space, or even easier, just go to founderspace.com, hit the contact button. If you put my name in it, it will get to me. I promise you. I always respond. May not be the response you want, but I will respond to you. And so contact us at Founderspace. You can also, we have just tons of material there. So I have my own podcast there. I have tons of, we have an online startup kit, all this stuff for entrepreneurs. Go there, have fun.
Very cool. And that's a good place for them to go and learn about what the deal details are, and they could chat with you about that or find more on the website.
Yeah. So I actually have a special thing for your Deal Scout people that's perfect for them. It's a secret URL that they can go to. It's called founderspace.com/10, the number 10. If they go there, they will get the 10 commandments of raising venture capital.
Very cool. Is it just the number 10, or is it spelled out 10?
Both. You can get it there either way. It's just 10. Founderspace.com/10.
Awesome. So, Captain, thanks for coming on the show. Loved your energy. Loved learning about you and hanging out with you for that time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. Fellow deal makers and startups and all you dreamers out there, and if you know what you're doing, what you're working on, I want to encourage you. This is so cool. I want to encourage you to keep going and keep trying new things and build stuff. If you want to talk about it on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com. Maybe talk about your podcast, maybe talk about your startup, maybe talk about your mission or the kind of deals you're looking for. This is a place where we talk about deals and then put deals and people together. So if you have something, let's talk about it on the show. As always, reach out to our guests, say thank you, and find a way to do a deal with them. That's a mission here. Till then, we'll talk to you all on the next episode. Bye, everybody.